hate to break the fishing news after Remchuk, but I'd like to speak about the ice hockey.
Congratulations, you're one of the 13 listeners of the Real Life Podcast.
We just traded a migraine in for like an orgasm.
Might want to mark that down.
Yep.
All of my projects are on schedule until they're not.
A member of the Nation Network of Podcasts.
About as funny as we're going to get today.
Welcome in, episode 226 of the Real Life Podcast. I'm Tyler Remchuk, joined by Bagged Milk, Jay Wanye, as always. Boys, it's good to be with you for our second podcast of the week. I like that we do two a week. It allows us to get a good rhythm going.
If you have a certain amount of time to talk about nothing, double amount of time will result in double amount of nothing talk.
Or it's like a double negative, right? Like two negatives is a positive or something like that.
Interesting.
Is that in the world of math and integers, perhaps?
And pregnancy tests. Two negatives in a row is positive.
Double negative, yeah.
I've heard that. Also, I'd still, I know we're on Thursday now, but I'm still thinking about Monday's podcast with Hunter Ryan Singh. He was great.
Oh, man.
Oh,
if you're listening to this podcast and you didn't listen to the interview with Hunter Ryan Singh, go back and give it a listen, because that dude, I said it at the end to him, and I meant it 100% wholeheartedly. The world of hockey needs more people like Hunter Ryan Singh, because that dude, man, the passion, what he was willing to go through and what he did go through to get Hockey Night Punjabi off the ground. His story in general is a great one. Go back, listen to that podcast.
Was it his idea, Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi?
It wasn't necessarily his idea, but he was the first play-by-play guy. He's been, I believe, the only play-by-play guy they have. He tells the story of having to pay for his own airfare to get out to Toronto every Saturday to do it. And basically
that's classy. Perfect.
Sleeping in the Toronto airport, in Pearson Airport, and then flying home that night. Like, it was a great story.
And I can't wait, honestly, until we get him back on the podcast, Wanye, because he would just casually drop hilarious Oilers things in there, because he is such a fan of the Oilers that he'd be like, well, this podcast could go on forever if we were talking about how bad the penalty kill was for years. And we're just like, oh, you're one of us.
Yeah.
He talks about how
there's a deeper conversation to be had.
Yeah, his family has a tradition. There's a certain, he said it was a pudding, right? Like that kind of thing that you have on birthdays. And he loved Wayne Gretzky so much that he would make his mom make this dish on Wayne's birthday so they could celebrate Wayne's birthday.
Oh, he's one of us.
Oh, yeah, he's totally one of us.
Gary Gretzman.
Speaking of one of us, the Edmonton Oilers lost, man, just an absolute legend, a giant in the Edmonton sports scene. I shouldn't even say Edmonton sports scene. Edmonton in general lost one of its greatest citizens earlier this week with the passing of Joey Moss. I mean, everyone's had their chance to go on Twitter and read through what former players, what fans, what members of the organizations, both the football team and the Oilers, have been saying about him. It's almost like it's so sad that he's gone. But all these memories and all these stories flooding in and getting one, not one last chance, but a chance for everyone to focus their attention on what he meant to the community. It's really been great to see. And I'm just going to open this up now if anyone else wants to talk a little bit. And we're going to talk to Sam Gagner in a few minutes about it as well. But just kind of everyone's thought on the loss of Joey Moss, but also the outpouring of support we've seen.
Okay, everybody, don't go at
well. Moment of silence, of course.
Well, fair enough. Well said.
It is so. This is literally a loss for the city. It is, and it's but it is just so crazy to see how far this has gone, how big of an impact he has made in not necessarily our city, in sport. And how recognized and how far that's gone is just so crazy to see. And I'm happy to see it because it's the respect that Joey Moss deserves for just who he was as a person, who he was for, being a leader for someone with a disability like he had, and just how the effect on how many. It's so awesome to hear all the player stories come out, and it's just amazing to see that all the players are just wanting to jump on this to share stories, and just to hear more of the inside of the type of guy he was, and the fact the positive impact he had on everyone he interacted with.
For me, I think when the news came out Monday evening, Tyler actually called me to tell me about what happened, and I was stuck to Twitter that whole night because it didn't matter what era of Oiler or even a lot of players that didn't play for this team, how much Joey meant to them, and just seeing the levels of support and the tributes to him and the kind messages and just the different stories from different people, whether it was an Oiler like Craig Simpson, who came here in the late 80s, or, Connor tweeting out or Nuge tweeting out. It was really heartbreaking, man, because he meant so much to the city, and he had such a passion for life, and everything about him was great. Even I was driving around, I was running a couple of errands before we started recording, and I saw an ad of him on one of, I don't remember what he did ads for. It was on the side of a truck as I was kind of sitting.
Winifred Stewart Association.
And it was just such a bummer, man, to lose just such a great piece of Edmonton and just an absolute legend.
I think that he's lived an amazing life.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. There is no element of tragedy at all associated with Joey Moss. He is a shining inspiration of what anybody can do, right? Like, challenges or no challenges, that guy was extremely good at an extremely important job of not being the dressing room attendant in terms of cleaning, but holding the room together, right? You imagine those late 80s teams when he first came on board, how good they were, and to have a calming presence like that in the room. It's such an interesting story.
And that's
what Gretzky. Oh, sorry, buddy.
No, I was just saying that, and that is what a lot of the players talked about was, after a win, after a loss, no matter how tough things were going at the time, you saw Joey and he helped you put things into perspective.
Mm-hmm. I thought that the stories about him, just as you said, being fun, right? Just being a guy who's shaken off a loss, it doesn't really matter to him, right? It was crazy, the Sam Gagner article. I know we're going to get to him in a little bit, which is crazy in and of itself, but saying, his favorite part of his 8-point night was Joey Moss hanging out. Oh my goodness, Sam Gagner, you're a hell of a person, and Joey Moss, you're a hell of a person too.
Well, and I loved, again, reading all the stories and the articles and everything that came out about him was a lot of fun, as much as it was sad, but it was also fun. I love the idea that he would be in the dressing room just chirping everybody, being one of the boys, and learning about how he loved to wrestle with the guys, and they wouldn't let him win by any means. And it was a battle, and he was one of the boys, and he was a bright spot for everybody, whether they were a current Oiler or not, or if they came back to the city, everybody wanted to see Joey Moss. And I loved it.
A buddy of mine for a short time was one of the assistant trainers of the Eskimos, on the medical team somehow or other,
mm-hmm.
Helping with whatever. And he told me a story that Joey would wrestle guys on the team, the big offensive lineman would wrestle him, and if he lost, he had to dunk himself in the ice tank, right? He'd jump into the ice tank and get out. My buddy was there was nothing more pure in this world than watching Eskimos watch Joey have to dunk himself in the ice bath and jump out. He's it was my highlight of my job there.
Another thing too, I was talking to Dave Jameson at TSN 1260, who said he would sometimes go under the cold water and wouldn't come up for a few seconds, and people would look around and be like, is this okay? Does he usually do this? Most people can't do this. And then he'd jump up and let out a big yell. Apparently they used to tell Eskimos when they got to town, or there was a thing that would go around when a new player would come to town, you better show Joey Moss respect, because no matter how many Grey Cups you win, no matter how many CFL All-Star teams you're on, you will never, ever mean as much to the community as Joey Moss. And I think that's even true from an Oilers perspective. You go back
100%
through every Stanley Cup, through every last place finish, through every head coach, through every GM, through the 2 arenas, through it all. Joey was always there in his seat. And I think it's going to be heartbreaking to have that seat empty next year and for him to not be around. But I will say this, and this is where the Oilers as an organization are always good. They're great at honoring their own. And I'm sure they have just some really, really heartfelt and meaningful ways to honor Joey coming down the pipeline. And it'll be great to see what those are.
What if it was up to you guys,
there's not enough.
There's not enough. You're 1,000% right. But what's just kind of some of your guesses if we're just kind of workshopping here, like that the Oilers could do? I loved the idea. Personally, I'm a big fan of Tarzan Boy as the win song, but if they changed it out to La Bamba for Joey, that would be great. I love the idea I saw of renaming the community rink after him. That would be great. I would even like to see them rename the dressing room after him. That would be great. Just, I don't know what kind of ideas you guys had, but just like Jay said, there's never going to be enough. And as Tyler said, you know, we've made fun of the Oilers plenty of times on this podcast, but I know they're going to do a great job.
Yeah, they'll do a good job. Like the big thing is just you got to try to capture his legacy. It's the biggest thing. And so, you know, like make sure his seat remains empty for all eternity. You know, naming the rink. Having a statue of Joey Moss beside Gretzky, like they're like Joey's at a higher level than Wayne Gretzky.
And Wayne Gretzky, I think, would be the first to tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
That interview that he did was amazing. And when he's talking about how he gave hope to parents of kids who have developmental challenges, right? And they saw that Joe was leaving a very normal life, right? Which I thought was a very interesting way to put it. And then at the end, he's like, oh, he's been my roommate off and on for years. Like, what? You were Wayne Gretzky's roommate off and on for years? Of course you deserve a statue.
Like, it'd be cool if they made a statue of like Joey standing beside and looking up to Wayne Gretzky, or vice versa, or a statue of Wayne, like, because those two are so synonymous with one another. And I know I just butchered that word, but because Gretzky is why Joey is here, right? Is the whole reason why he was able to come work for the Oilers. But then Joey made it so much more. Like Gretzky obviously knew there was something special there, and that's why he brought Joey in. So like, it's important that those legacies are connected. And so you've got to reflect that. And I just think like making sure that the Oilers are supporting all of Joey's work that he did in the community with his charitable efforts and all that stuff, making sure that stuff doesn't go away. I think that's super important.
I would put his plaque or statue or whatever type of memorialization they do in the room, because I think where his impact was felt the most wasn't by the fans of the Oilers, but it was like a private relationship with Oilers throughout the years, right? And I think, like, interesting your point about like his legacy, like what he stands for. I think Gretzky like put it very well, right? Like he was there as your friend, and he didn't care about sports. And like in a town where Oilers get shouted down at the 7-Eleven for not blocking shots and shit, there was probably a lot of times where it was just relief to have that kind of as an anchor. That's his legacy, I think.
Jay, you mentioned the idea of leaving his seat empty for all eternity, and at TSN 1260 we did a whole day where all we talked about was Joey Moss, and we had listeners texting in stories, and there was one who talked about how his local grocery store had a Down syndrome boy who worked there, and he'd see him all the time, and he'd like to talk about the Oilers with him whenever he'd see him. And one day he's getting his groceries, he's talking about the Oilers, said something about Joey Moss, and this other boy with Down syndrome leaned in and said, Joey Moss is my hero. And for me, I think of that seat, and I tweeted it out, leave it empty for a year, but how cool would it be if after, maybe a year of it being empty, you took that seat and the one next to it, and every home game, you donated it to a family who has a child with disability, right? And you give them a tour of the dressing room. Maybe you show them what Joey would do on a game day and all that. And every game there could be someone in that seat who looked up to Joey, who gets to live a day. Maybe if Joey was their hero, they get to have a night where they live like Joey, and they get to give the players the high fives. They get to go into the room after a win and all that, right?
Bravo.
Chuck, I'm going to promote you. That's a very good idea. I'm going to promote you to the highest level of media. You're Low Tide now. That's a very good idea, dude. Low Tide. Good job.
I wonder, I know it wouldn't look necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but I wonder if they could maybe replace Joey's seat with just a bright orange version of it or something,
I think
so
that
that
would be
everybody in the arena knew that was Joey's spot.
But I love the idea of having a kid
orange
there,
and green.
that would mean the world to him.
Of course. I love that.
I like the legacy. That's a good idea with the chair color. Don't get me wrong, but the legacy being that people continue to be impacted. Like you said, your Chuck is being his hero. I think that's a very, very good legacy.
It's a great idea. The Oilers should probably listen to this podcast, to be honest.
Well,
no other episode, but specifically this one.
Certainly not. Yeah, just that 5-minute clip of your Chuck talking.
I have a feeling there's certain layers within the organization that might already.
The usher in section 116.
Exactly. We're already inside the building.
We're drove me out once. Yeah. Well,
one of the Oilers players who had a real special connection to Joey Moss, and he did it beautifully in the Players Tribune. It was Sam Gagner, and he's joined our podcast before. He's going to join us again in just a second here. But the bond those two had, I should say, was obviously very, very tight. And I mean, every former player who's come out has said just some great things about their memories of Joey. And I think over the last couple of days, I've really liked how the stories have been lighthearted a lot, because that's what Joey was all about. He was always putting a smile on your face. And I think it gave the fans an even closer connection to Joey Moss in a way, because like you said, Wanye, everyone in the community loved Joey, but it's just something different between him and the players and the staff. So we're going to give Sam Gagner a chance to talk a little bit about that now. He joins us on the Real Life Podcast. Sam, as always, thanks for your time. And Sam, obviously want to talk to you a little bit about your relationship with Joey Moss and what he meant to not just the community, but to the Oilers as well. And I'm sure you've seen it online, just the outpouring of love and people sharing their memories of Joey over the last 24, 48 hours here has been incredible. Like, the community obviously just love this guy. And even if you never met him, you had a connection to Joey Moss. But can you maybe talk a little bit about what that connection was like in the room between the players and Joey?
Yeah. I mean, just you kind of felt that the first day that you got in the dressing room, just kind of the aura that he had around him, just the type of person that he was, the impact he had on that dressing room. I mean, he'd been there for so long and kind of like generations of players. He'd been around them, and you hear the story of Wayne Gretzky and how he became part of the room. And he's just one of those guys that, every day he came to the rink, he put a smile on your face and really put things into perspective for you. And, he was such an important part of everything they do in Edmonton in terms of, creating a family atmosphere. I mean, there was no one better than Joey Moss. And, we were able to develop a really close relationship with him. We, the group we had in Edmonton when I first got there were a young group, and we would take him for dinners and, go hang out with him away from the rink, which was, it was incredible. And, we got to learn so much from Joe. So it was, a really, fun time in our lives, and, something I'll cherish forever.
Sam, for me, one of the most interesting kind of things was, on Monday evening as the news was coming out, former Oilers, current Oilers, players from around the league that never played here, other teams sending out notes about Joey. Was any of that a surprise to you, just to see the outpouring of support from around the league? Or was this a guy that no matter who you were, you got a little bit of time with him and it just made a world of difference?
Well, yeah, I know personally when I got a chance to play on other teams, I would say to guys, when we come back to Edmonton, it was, hey, do you guys know anything about Joey? We got to get Joey over to our room. So I would always get the trainers to bring Joey over, and it was, for me, it was like you just pick off where you left off. But just getting a chance for him to interact with some of the other guys on other teams, and for them to see the impact he had on the Oilers organization, it was, after a while, everyone just, Joey becomes synonymous with the NHL, and everyone knows his story and how much he means to our room. So it was, he was just a really incredible person. The impact that he made, even though he's passed on, it's going to continue to live on. So I think he's, I could sit here all day and talk about, Joey stories and kind of the legacy he's going to leave. And, as much as it's a sad day, it's also, I feel like it should be a celebration of everything he's able to accomplish and the impact he was able to have.
Yeah, and I've really enjoyed that as well, how these stories all have such a positive angle. Like, you won't find anyone in Edmonton who will say a bad thing about Joey, and if someone has a story, it's one that usually leaves you smiling or laughing. Last time we had you on the pod, you shared the story about your 8-point night, and at the end, you were sitting and having a beer with Joey. And to me, like, a night where you make history, it ends with you just sitting in, as Joey would say, a cold beer. Like that, to me, that just shows how ingrained he was in the fabric of this organization, that on a historic night like that, it still ends with you sitting and having a beer with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that night was, obviously really special from a personal standpoint. And, it took me a while to get out of the rink. I get a call from Wayne Gretzky. I get a call from Paul Coffey, Oilers Hall of Famers. And those were really, really special moments. But at the end of the day, the number one moment for me is, I'm getting ready to leave the rink, and Joey goes to the back and gets a couple beers and brings them to me. And he said, he wants to celebrate because he's proud of me. And there's I can't even recreate that feeling. It's sad to think about the fact that I'll never get that chance again, but I'm going to cherish all those memories. I got a chance to this year at the Christmas party sit with him for the whole dinner, and just chat again, have another beer. And, over the last few years, Joey had kind of been slowing down. He's around the rink a little bit less, and, you kind of knew this day was coming. So, to have that night, this year, it was a really special night for myself. And then, getting traded back to Edmonton for a second time and getting a chance for him to meet my kids and, everything that goes with that. I mean, I certainly don't take that lightly. And it was, everything about Joey. He's just an incredible person. His impact's going to last forever.
One of the tweets that the Oilers shared the other night was it going back a ways. It was from 2013. It was a picture of you and Joey that you put out from the wrestling night. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what that story was. So I'm just hoping you could just quickly run us through that evening and what it meant, because the photo's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple good wrestling stories about Joey, but that one in particular, it was his 50th birthday, and Ryan Smith put together a team party for him where we, where he brought in a ring, and we had a couple amateur wrestlers come in, and they staged this entire event. And at the end of it, we pushed Joey in the ring and said, "Hey, you're up," and he got to go in and pin the wrestler and win the match. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the history of us staging wrestling matches in the dressing room, but Joe didn't win too many of those matches. We didn't let him win. So when he won this match, he was so fired up, and we all got together and we picked him up over our head, and we started chanting his name, and he was so pumped up, and it was just such a great night, such a great tribute to him, and how much he meant to us. So it was certainly a night I'll never forget.
I love that you bring up that you didn't just let him win. And Paul Coffey, when he was on TSN the other day, he was talking about how you could give it to Joey, but he could give it back to you as well. And he shared the story of when his first game back in town since being traded, Joey told him, have a good game, but not too good of a game, because he didn't want him to win. Do you have a good story of Joey razzing you in the room, or was there ever a good Joey Moss prank that he pulled on you?
He was, I've told this, and I was talking to Andrew Cogliano about this the other night, but when I first came in, I was, the youngest guy on the team, and, guys would kind of give it to me, and Joey, I think, picked up on that. So he was so hard on me, but so funny. We would just kind of go back and forth, giving it to each other. And, I was at that age, I didn't pick up after myself, and I was, whatever. So I would have Joey come get me from the complete opposite side of the dressing room, walk me all the way over to where my bag is, and be like, "Are you kidding me? You're not going to pick this up?" And I'm like, "Joey, you went out of your way to do this instead of just picking up the laundry bag, right?" That's, he took great pride in his job, and I was making his job harder when I'm picking up my laundry. So it's just stuff like that you always remember.
For us as fans, I think, the national anthem that he loved to sing, just enjoying the moment, all of us got to see and appreciate that when it came to Joey. But maybe is there something that maybe the fans wouldn't be privy to know about this guy? Because just the outpouring of support from players and the league in general, is there something that we didn't know about him?
Well, I mean, I think we were just able to develop a personal relationship with him, right? And, I think that was the biggest thing. I mean, like I said, with with our group, we took him out to dinner all the time. He had sleepovers at our house. We had an extra room at our house, so he'd stay over and just hang with us. And you develop a personal relationship that comes with that. And I think at the time you're thinking, well, this will be great for Joey. He'll get to see us away from the rink. And and looking back on it now, it's like, no, this was great for us. The chance, to hang out with him away from the rink, and it was just the most special time. Buddy, sorry, I'm just on a call. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Okay. It was the best time ever. We would drive around Edmonton, and he would bring, he'd bring his overnight bag. And so in his bag, he'd always have his James Bond GoldenEye soundtrack CDs, right? So he'd put those on in our car, and he would, wherever we're going, like say we're driving to dinner, it took 20 minutes, he'd be screaming, singing this in the back. Be like, just like, and looking back on that, it was so much fun. I remember a time we took him, he's a huge wrestling fan, right? So he's like, we got to get tickets to this wrestling event. So we're like, okay, we look it up. It's at the Cineplex. It wasn't even like a live event. So like, we're not going to this, Joe. He's like, yeah, we are. We're like, there's going to be nobody there. He's like, okay. So we get there, and we're the last people to show up. The theater is packed. We can't get a seat. So we're like thinking Joe's going to be bummed out, right? Like, we can't get a seat. He was so fired up because we actually had to sit on the stairs, and we're right in front of the screen on the landing. So instead of sitting down the whole time, he got to run around on the landing, and like when the wrestlers would do their signature moves, he would go up through them. And so like the entire theater's looking at him, and we're like thinking, maybe he's embarrassed by this. And nope, he was so fired up to be there in front of all these people, and he was the big show, and it was just the best. And just those memories, you learn so much from that, right? I feel so fortunate to have developed the relationship with Joe, and it means so much to me. So, yeah.
Oh, Sam, we really appreciate you giving us some time today. It's obviously a huge loss for the hockey community, the football community, and obviously you guys had a really close bond. So we appreciate you giving us some time today.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And also, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring this up. Congratulations from everyone at Oilers Nation on your new contract. I know a lot of people in Edmonton are going to be rooting for the Wings next year, so congrats on that.
Yeah. All right, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, see you guys.
See ya. Big thanks to Sam for giving us a few minutes on the Real Life podcast today. Just a very well-spoken guy. And I mean, is he the only Oiler now to appear on our podcast twice? Which again, just speaks to how great of a person Sam is. I mean, he didn't care who it was. If they wanted to talk about Joey, he was down to share some memories, which was great.
You're also calling him an Oiler despite him being under contract elsewhere.
He'll always be an Oiler.
Once in a while,
Teams ago,
we should have signed that. Just listen to that interview. Seeing the article he wrote, like, why the hell don't you bring that guy back? Like,
and why was some lucky young scribe around town so incorrect when he said he was supposed to be captain? I wonder every time he opens.
So correct.
Well, I was correct.
If Ralph Kruger wasn't fired over
Dallas Aiken,
and it was still the coach, you would be right. There'd be a statue for you with that right prediction.
Just me gesturing in the air wildly with a beer in my hand.
Yeah.
I think that Sam Gagner is a cut above, man. I truly do. And I don't think that was really, to me at least, apparent when he was an Oiler. Like, I don't think he was either fully embracing that role publicly, maybe behind closed doors, but like, he's such an exceptionally well-spoken person. His article was so well written. He's great.
And to hear him just talk about, tell the story about when he lived with Robert Nilsson and Andrew Cogliano, and they always had an empty room for Joey to come have sleepovers at their place.
He went on a date with his wife early on. Like, what the hell?
The best.
I loved the story of, or Sam makes it sound like you'd go pick up Joey for dinner and he'd just walk out with an overnight bag. And it was kind of like, oh, man, you sleep over tonight, Joey? All right, man. Or the other story I loved in there was when Joey said he wanted to go to the WWE event. It's just a screening of WWE at Cineplex, and they get there, there's no seats, but Joey spends the whole show running up and down the platform, doing all the wrestlers' signature moves. The story of the 50th birthday they threw for him with the wrestling and Joey getting to win the wrestling match. Bag Milk.
They had a big wrestling event, right? They brought in wrestlers?
Yeah.
So Ryan Smith held it for Joey's 50th birthday, and they brought in a ring. They brought in a bunch of local amateur wrestlers, and the climax of the evening was Joey heading into the ring, pinning the villain or the champ at that point and getting the belt. It is the best. Yeah,
man. Yeah, you're right. There's guys like Sam Gagner too. That's the type of guy you want around your organization. We thank Sam again for his time. Beg Milk, in that interview was there anything that sort of really jumped out to you other than Sam Gagner's child walking in at some point and deciding he wants it on the interview as well, which is what that brief interruption there was. It is real life after all.
I just really enjoyed hearing how much Sam Gagner loved Joey Moss. He talked about when he talked about coming back to Edmonton, because first of all, it's amazing that Sam Gagner is 31 years old, because it feels like he's been in the NHL for 200 years at this point. Yeah. But when he would come back with a different team, he would introduce a bunch of opposing players to Joey, and Joey would just win them over instantly. It's just, no matter who you were, what team you played for, if you were coming to Edmonton, you were probably going to interact with Joey at some point, and it was never a bad time for anyone. That's why I was even impressed by a guy like Max Domi. Never played at Edmonton, but tweeted out a really nice, just heartfelt condolence message for Joey Moss and what he meant, and seeing all the other NHL teams do it. Like you said, this is bigger than just being an Edmonton Oiler or an Edmonton or for the football team. Like, Joey was everything to everyone. And I think, to be honest, Sam's such a pro, and how he closed out the interview by saying, when I first got here as an 18-year-old, I thought we were doing Joey a favor by hanging out with him. But then you very quickly realize that Joey was doing us a favor by spending time with us. And it was just, you see the connection they had, you see how much it meant to him. And it was just really lovely to hear him tell some of those stories kind of behind the scenes that we as fans wouldn't ever get a chance to see. But as a fan, I got to say, the video tribute that Josh Park put together.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Man, I was cutting onions at my house that night, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
The way he did the anthem, the 2006, the clips that Josh put in that video from 2006 and Joey doing the anthem was just, I'll never forget those. Every time he did it, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember a buddy of mine one time when I was in high school, I was thinking of Joey Moss stories. A guy I went to high school with, his dad was an agent. So he got my buddy, his other friend or two buddies, into the dressing room. And he said, my friend went to the dressing room once and one time alone, like the mid-90s, late 90s. And we were pretty little still. And he's like, it was crazy, man, because all of a sudden, Joey Moss was behind me with a vacuum trying to vacuum my feet out of the way. And he was like, what the heck? And he moved over, and Joey kept coming at him with the vacuum. My buddy had no idea what to do. And so he panicked, and Sparky Golchiski came over. He's like, he's just messing with you, man. It's fine. And he was like, oh shit, I thought I'd offended him. He's like, no, he's just bugging me. But when he wanted to clear the room, when he decided that the interviews are over, he'd fire his vacuum on, and the room would clear out of reporters.
Oh yeah, Jim Matheson tweeted about that as well.
Did he?
Oh yeah. If you're in the room and then you're in the middle of an interview, but it's Joey's time to vacuum, he doesn't give a shit if you're Hall of Fame writer Jim Matheson. He'll run you over. And that was great. There was another texter to the radio station the other day, shared a great story. They worked at Rogers Place as a camera operator and doing the production stuff. And he went up to the Starbucks to get a coffee that's by the rink, and it was closed. So he came downstairs where the rest of his coworkers were, and he was like, hey guys, heads up, the Starbucks upstairs is closed. And I guess Joey heard it, and the texter said that Joey brought over the coffee machine and cups of coffee for everyone, and then told this guy, this is my birthday and Christmas present to you. And like just some complete stranger. But Joey hears that they don't, the Starbucks is closed. You can't go get coffee. And Joey goes and finds coffee for him and brings it over. Like, again, it just shows, and his sister did a great interview the other day. Joey was just synonymous with making people smile, right?
Yeah. He had a joie de vivre that was just like incredible. You know what I mean? He did everything at 9,000%. And it didn't matter if there was, like Sam said, it didn't matter if there was nobody in the room or if it was in front of a building full of people. He gave it everything. And I think that's probably, you know, Tyler, we mentioned it a little bit too, even when we were just before this. The video that the Oilers put out of Joey just kind of soaking in the moment of the fireworks, it was such a lovely kind of glimpse into his personality of living in the moment and just kind of enjoying what's happening around you. And Joey was the best probably ever at it.
I think about 2020 is a bit, and there's no sense stacking up additional things to be unhappy about. The thing that sucks about this is that he didn't have a last game with a chance for Oilers fans to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in another way, maybe that's good, right? In the sense that, like, you know, he doesn't say goodbye. He's still there in spirit. Who knows?
Yeah, and I kind of like that point as well, you know, because it's not like no one's forgetting Joey Moss ever. I was going to say anytime soon, but that would be incorrect as well. No one's forgetting Joey Moss ever, man, and his legacy is going to live on with the Oilers for a long, as long as they're here, it'll live on.
And like we said earlier, I know I would bet anything that the Oilers are going to do a great job in a tribute to Joey, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with.
Yeah, it'll be good stuff.
It will be better than Josh Park's video prediction. Thank you.
Of course.
Josh Park forever.
Episode 226 of the Real Life Podcast. Give some love to one of our sponsors here, Twig and Berries. Winter is, it was here in Edmonton for about 4 days, and now I'm looking at the weather, and it feels like we went from fall to winter. We're jumping back to fall quickly. But either way, get comfortable, get warm. Essentials for the modern day caveman at twigandberries.ca. No judgment, no shaming, no fancy words, just real men, whether it's for you or Christmas. Remember, Christmas will creep up on you. If you need a gift for that man in your life, you head to twigandberries.ca.
Real men, real rope. No? Alternate? No? Okay.
That could be. Like, I like that.
You can use
I'm running my nutsack today, and I'm feeling good.
I can't wait to get my
Twig and Berries are happy. I'll tell
you.
I can't wait to get my hands on a fresh pair of nutsacks.
Well, you need to leave your house because I can't be delivery Santa all the time.
Oh, come on, man! Amazon
trying to get them to you.
You know, you haven't worn underwear since March bag milk. Be quiet.
Well, that's right. Of course.
You're letting your Twig and Berries run wild.
Mm-hmm. That's why I need the real Twig and Berries to, delicately wrap my Twig and Berries.
The big point of this ad read is to tell everyone they can save 15% by using the promo code Nation15. So I'm glad no one cut me off before I got that out of the way. Promo code Nation15, twigandberries.ca. They got great products and they're local. It's always good to support local. Not that
I've also heard that wearing Twig and Berries underwear makes your Twig and Berries look 15% larger when you use the promo code Nation15. Thank you.
Only when you use the promo code.
Nation15 has got multiple uses.
I don't know if I can handle that.
See what it gets you.
Yeah, I can't handle that bag milk. I'm already in the red zone of alarm for Wang size. If I have another 15%, it's going to be detrimental to my game.
Well, you're going to have to hook in an IV just in case, you know?
This thing's got a right-hand turn in it already.
I don't like this conversation at all.
Well, you have the power to edit anything we say.
You're the one who thought it'd be a good idea to have a sassy underwear brand for organic conversation.
Well, I think Twig and Berries leans in because their underwear is called Nutsack.
Yeah, exactly. I can hardly think that they'd be mortified by this kind of talk. Well, exactly their demo.
Their name is literally Twig and Berries. Like,
Barry like Barry Sanders.
Right.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. What were you thinking, Tyler?
Or Barry Obama.
Oh, Beijing Berry?
Or they're just fans of berries in general because they're very healthy over at Twig and Berries.
Well, that would be if it was spelled with an E, and it's not. It's our friend Barry. We all have one.
Well, you know I can't spell.
Or two.
Has there been an Oiler named Barry? Thinking.
Barry Stafford.
Yeah, true. Well said.
Drew Barrymore.
Buried alive.
Drew Stafford.
Yeah. Barry Gilbert.
Tom Gilbert's slow brother.
Yeah.
So slow. He's got no foot speed, but he looks like Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I screwed it up. Sam Gagner did not live with Robert Nielsen. It was Tom Gilbert. I forgot.
I was thinking that because I was thinking back to Oil Change and the hilarious episode I saw a preview for but never actually saw it, where they were cleaning up after a dinner. Oh, the hijinks.
Mm-hmm.
I loved when Sam was talking about how when he got here as an 18-year-old, he was messy. When he'd leave stuff around, as my voice cracks, when he'd leave stuff around, Joey would like come yell at him and like walk him back to his stall and be like, "Don't leave your laundry bag like that. Pick it up."
Really?
Oh yeah.
Joey.
I love it. I love it.
I think it
Don't
was
mess
either
with Joey's world, man.
it was either Horkoff or Cogliano who talked about how like, man, Joey was a little ruthless to Gagner. Like he did not let him get away with very much, if anything.
That's why I love that. That was the beginning of a beautiful friendship that lasted a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
100%.
Had Sam Gagner been named captain, as he and I both agree he should have been. In fact, I would never say a word to him about it. What would it have been like? Would it have been different than the Andrew Ference era?
I don't know. Like, I mean, Aikens would have had to have never been hired, I think. Like, I think that had a bigger effect on it than who wore the C.
It did. Wink.
But I'm going back to that Gagner trade. Like, the Gagner trade tree is pretty sad to go down. Like, flipping him for Ted Purcell. Damn.
Oh, man.
How do we do this? How do we always let, like, it's as though character doesn't come into question.
No.
And then, but then what they do is they go out and say, we need guys with more character after trading away character players like Sam Gagner.
And Matt Hendricks.
Yeah. And then, of course, they flipped Ted Purcell for a gentleman named Matt Cairns, who they took in the 3rd round of the draft. And Matt Cairns, he is a graduate of Cornell University, but he never played a game in the NHL.
Well, I believe he works at Twig and Berries, doesn't he?
No.
Cornell man? Probably. Smart businessman go there. I would think that guys like Sam Gagner, who love the city and are productive to the point of 8 points in one night and were drafted by the Oil, who are only 31, I don't understand. I don't understand.
They better have something where he's back here after. Like, this is where he belongs.
Yeah.
You'd hope. Him signing in
Remchuk
Detroit,
said he was an Oiler.
Yeah, well, always an Oiler. Him signing
Always
in
an Oiler.
Detroit makes a bit of sense. Like, you'd understand why Detroit wants a guy like that there. Dependable veteran, playing your bottom 6, has some offense. But for him, like, I believe Gagner still spends his off seasons in, Southern Ontario. So that jump to Detroit.
He does. I see him on Instagram doing leg lifts every 30 seconds in this giant ass house on the water. We did it, Sam. We did it.
Or jumping into the frozen ass lake. And I'm like, man, there's not money in the world. I hate cold water is not my jam.
Oh, buddy, you got to adopt the Scandinavian spa life.
No,
man. Super hot, extreme hot, and then jump into extreme cold.
That can't
buddy,
be good for you.
So good for it is. The research would suggest otherwise, my friend.
I feel like
if you're in a hot tub and you grab snow and put it on yourself, you feel alive.
Yeah, man, it's good for the body. It's good for the mind. Highly recommend it. Get it in your life.
I'm a big hot tub guy.
When we go to Finland, Remchuk, because it is going to happen, I will show you the sauna culture and routine that involves 140 degree sauna and then 4 degree, 8 to 6 degree lake dip.
You're not afraid to get naked in close quarters with a man, are you, Remchuk?
No, not at all. I mean, one of the reasons I'm upset at my beer league upset at beer league hockey coming back is that I can't shower with the boys,
Now, hold on. There's a difference between being afraid of it and looking forward to it. You may have moved the dial too far for me.
No, I'm actually like not being able to shower after beer league. We talked about this on a podcast before when we had Josh Park on. It's actually like really angering to me. I hate driving home and being sweaty.
I know. Had I actually been in the Sam Gagner interview, which has been packaged up so clearly that it's nice to know that I'm so close. I'm on a podcast with Sam Gagner, but not actually getting to talk to him. I think next time we see him, that's the league question. True or false? The best thing about playing in the show was all the nudity. True or false? True or false?
I can't see how he disagrees with that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Sam Gagner, Tyler Remchuk really wants us to ask you. It's the best
I would
part
like to
about
watch
playing the
you
NHL.
go to stand up your M-Check or go somewhere where your fellow human are having fun and just put you in the middle as though you just drank a liter of apple cider vinegar and you just sit there with Russian Judge Stoneface the entire time.
I have an idea for an internet series, like a YouTube series, where it's just me interviewing people in the shower.
In the shower.
Like,
yeah.
You know,
and not laughing at shit, even if the other person's dropping gold.
No, and I think I'm also very good at that, not laughing at things, which is a talent I've worked hard. My dad taught it to me, all that kind of stuff. You guys want to hear a good Yaremchuk and father story?
Yeah, always.
We curl together now, like me and his friends who are his age, and then there's me, and I'm like more than half as young as these guys, right? Or half younger than them, however you phrase that. So
you're probably like a third of their age, aren't you?
No. My dad is, I think my dad's 57, 56, 57. So I'm about half his age.
Aren't you 21?
I'm 23. I just turned 23.
Oh, mazel tov. Go on.
So we only had 3 guys at curling because everyone was busy or whatever. And one of the guys was like, well, I'm going to go back to work. So see ya. He took his break from work to come and curl for an hour and a half. So it was just me and my dad. And he was like, so do you want to go up for a beer? And I was like, I whatever you want, I guess. And he was like, well, I guess we could go have a beer. So we went, and as I've said on the podcast before, me and my dad don't speak to each other very often. We spend a ton of time together, but we don't speak to each other very much. So we sat and had a beer in just complete silence at the curling club. That was our night. And then we had one, and he's like, I could go for another one.
I don't know why I get so much joy from that.
Yeah, like where did you grow up?
Like,
Arkham Prison?
The punchline is always the same, but I love it.
And yeah, so we drank one. We sat close to the glass and watched the other curling matches go, and we finished our first beers.
Beer?
I had
a Pilsner.
He usually goes for Molson Canadian, but then he had a Pilsner for his second one because I think they were out of bottles of Canadian. He hates draft beer. I love draft beer. So I had a Wild Rose Alberta Velvet Fog. And so yeah, we finished our first ones, and he's like, so one more? And I was like, sure, one more. So we went and we sat and we
We're having a blast,
beer.
clearly.
Yeah, that beautiful moment.
Yeah,
you get the chance to have
you
have a chance to have a couple of beers with your dad and not say a single word. You got to jump on that.
I cherish these moments. And actually before that, because you curl on like the bottom level and the bar's upstairs, right? He was like, here, give me your broom. I got to go have a smoke. I'll put it away for you. So he like went and put my broom in the car and smoked, and I like went and bought the beers and then waited at the table for him. It was hilarious. I had a great time.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I imagine your dad is you with a mustache.
Yeah.
Hello, son.
Yeah.
Hello, Tyler. I am Trevor.
He doesn't call me son. He usually doesn't like refer to me as anything. You just like,
that's strange.
He has like the voice where you know he's talking to you, so he doesn't need to say like Tyler or son or anything. He'll just be like, hey, and you're like, oh, yep, that's for me.
There's something in your family's genome that makes you completely unimpressed with everyone you've ever met, especially, I would assume, one another. I didn't realize until 2 years into knowing you that my sister knew your cousin, and I did too. And I remember her as being somebody who detested me on sight every time she saw me for 6 years socially out with friends. I was like, God damn, that chick hates me. Of course you're related.
Yeah, it runs in the family. It's all good though.
What are your family reunions like? Just a lot of crossed arms and blinking, or what?
Very quiet.
Yeah.
Well, until we get drinking. I remember, so like my dad, both sides of the family are big, but my dad's side, like a lot of male cousins. I mean, a lot of cousins in general, but a lot of male cousins. We'd go to my Baba's house in Vegreville, which was an old house. And we would play fucking mini sticks in her upstairs living room, man. But like, it would have been when I was like, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And my cousins were all like 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And we'd play like full contact mini sticks upstairs. And if you sat in the basement, which is where we'd have dinner, but we'd play mini sticks upstairs for some reason, like it would sound like the house was about to just collapse. Because like someone's body would hit the floor and like dust would fall from the ceiling downstairs. It was wild.
One year M-Check telling a joke, the rest of the year M-Check's not laughing.
Pretty much. You sit in the same pod every year. You talk to like, well, now that's what it is because we don't play mini sticks anymore, unfortunately. But you just sit in the same pod of like 4 people, talk to them. Midnight rolls around. Everyone kind of goes like, oh, time to go. See ya. Good to see ya. Bye. And that's kind of it. All right. Now you're all updated on my family life.
why I listen to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
What are your MChecks up to?
I've also decided that I don't believe them. I just imagine they're sitting there, like Wanye said, cross-armed with an episode of Corner Gas on, and they all just blink in unison at the screen.
Click. That's the sound of them all blinking.
At Christmas, it's the Sportsnet like highlight reel show. We just watch that on repeat. That's usually what's on TV.
I remember that goal. I do remember that goal. I remember when he went around that guy. I remember that too.
That's literally what it is.
Does each of your Remchuk have a specialty skill, like yours obviously being a legit sports reporter at the age of 8? Does everybody have
one cousin who like ripped up the AJHL for a few years, eventually went up to Alaska, played NCAA with Colton Parayko. Then he played on the same line as Ryan Smith with the Stony Plain Eagles.
Was he on the ice when it happened?
I'm not sure if he was on the ice, but he would have been at that game, yeah. All right, we got to switch gears a little bit here because we got OddsShark to talk about. We got sports betting to chat on. So, yeah. Wanye, this is the point of the podcast where we trade you.
Good luck to everybody with your various pursuits.
All right, I'm going to add in... It's not Scott Hastings this week. Like I said, he's on vacation, I guess, for one day, or he has the day off because, remember, he is a professional bettor. He does this for a living.
He's been winning. He's celebrating his wins.
Yeah, he has been winning. OddsShark.com, your spot for all your sports betting information. Become a smarter bettor. Use OddsShark as Joe Osborne answers the phone. Joe, this isn't like when we talk on the radio. There's no preamble. We're recording the podcast right now, so welcome in.
What's up, guys? Let me just set this up. I didn't know if this was going to be video or...
We don't use the video. We only use the audio. It's just better this way because we can all see each other's faces and whatnot.
Okay, let me get this rigged up here. I got a little rig. What's going on, guys?
Not much.
Hoping to win some money, my friend.
Yeah, we are. Joe, we're joined by Jay, one of the founders of Oilers Nation, and a gentleman who we refer to as Bagged Milk. We don't use his real name.
I remember back in the day, people would get bagged milk delivered to their homes, but it seems kind of inconvenient, milk in a bag, right? Because you have you cut it with scissors, and then it's just kind of open in your fridge. And not my cup of tea. If I want to have a drink in my fridge, I want to be able to put the top back on it, right? So I like the way they're doing milk. Milk now, it seems more.
It's more come a long way.
It's a terrible vessel for carrying milk, I will admit.
Yeah, milk makes sense.
Joe, one of the reasons I love following you on Twitter is because you tweet out just fantastic betting advice and numbers and all that. But then once in a while, you hit us with things like nothing kills productivity like convenient access to pornography. That's a tremendous tweet.
It's true.
It's very true. Like, it's everywhere.
I'm a married guy right now, so I won't go into hardcore details, but everyone goes down that rabbit hole with on YouTube and Wikipedia and stuff like that. But when you're talking adult cinema, it's a completely different story because your curiosity just takes over, right?
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk some sports betting. Just a general question about you. How long have you been with OddsShark for now?
5 years in September. So
5 years in September.
I like a lot of people. I was a hardcore fantasy guy, and would mainly do like money line parlays and stuff like that. I was by no means was I a hardcore bettor, and then I kind of got my foot in the door there, and it kind of took off, and I learned more and more every day, every season. And it's an absolute blast. Every single game is a different puzzle, no matter what the sport. And you're trying to crack the code. And that's what I tell people, like people that don't know anything about sports betting. A lot of people would assume, Joe works in sports betting. He's probably going to, 9-1 every week in the NFL. But I could spend 2 hours looking at a game and come up with my pick, whereas my mom could say, well, I like that team because they're wearing blue. And she could win, and I could lose. You know what I mean? So it's like I said, a different puzzle every week. Sometimes it's impossible, but I love trying to crack the code.
Joe, I'm the rookie. I'm the rookie bettor on the podcast. So every week I like to ask a rookie betting question.
Sure.
Hoping for some advice here. I got a DM on Twitter saying, listening to the podcast last week, Tyler was talking about parlays. As a rookie bettor, I recommend that you stay away from parlays. Would that be something that you'd agree with?
Yeah, for the most part. It's when you're adding more things have to happen. happen in a parlay, right? Especially if you're parlaying spreads and totals, like never mind money lines. Like if you want to do parlays, I would recommend just sticking to money lines for the most part. But yeah, like I couldn't tell you, and everyone whose bet has a story, or they're doing parlays with, 5 or 6 legs on it, and the one that looks like the sure thing is the one that loses. So I would say if you want to do parlays, stick to 2 teams and keep it to money line. And some people take betting a little bit too serious, like a lot of the betting snobs and the sharp types would say never do parlays. But keep in mind, like a lot of people out there, they're just betting $10 or $20. So I see nothing wrong. Like if someone wants to have a little bit of fun and do a bit of a long shot bet just for the entertainment sake of it, you're probably not going to win, to be fair. But sometimes those hit, and that can be an absolute blast.
Well, it's entertainment at that point. You got to jack up the juice if you're only betting $10. Can't get bet exactly. 10 and win 8.
Yeah,
try to turn 10 into 100.
Yeah, 100%.
This is another random question. Do you remember the first time you ever bet on sports?
Yeah, we do. I grew up in New Brunswick, actually. Do you guys have Proline at
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like, and everyone kind of got wise to it in the past couple of years. Proline's a bit of a ripoff, right, compared to if you just go like an online sports book, or if you happen to be down in the States at a sports book casino type thing. But yeah, I used to work at Irving gas station pumping gas. So the boys would do the money line parlays at the NFL every weekend, and just the most ludicrous bets. You have 5 or 6 teams on a ticket. And so, yeah, we used to do those every weekend. Sometimes you hit one occasionally and walk out with a good payoff. But, yeah, just a little bit of entertainment for the weekend. Those were my introduction to betting.
I remember the first weekend after I turned 18, I was more excited to be able to go buy Proline tickets than I was any other perk of turning 18, which is the legal age in Alberta. And I remember, like, my third day betting, I did a $5 ticket, and like the World Series was on that year. I did a $5 ticket that had like a couple of the World Series like player ones where you have to pick like which guy will get more hits or total bases or whatever. And it was like $5 into like 110. And for 18-year-old me, man, that still might go down as one of the best betting days of my life.
There you go.
Well, that's a life-changing sum of money at 18.
At 18, man, like when you're drinking beer that's $15 for a 15-pack kind of thing, like winning $110, you're setting yourself up for a few months at that point.
Yeah, you're the richest man alive.
Okay, NFL Week 8, Joe. There's a couple games I want to get your take on. Tua Tagovailoa getting the start for Miami against the Rams. Yeah. That's quite the introduction to have to go up against Aaron Donald in your first game. And looking right now at OddsShark, it's a 3.5 point spread right now favoring the Rams. Your guy's supercomputer has the Rams winning by 1. What's your take on this game? Like, how do you handle a game where it's a rookie quarterback and you might not know what you're going to get?
It's kind of guessing at that point, right? So, like, if you want to put big money on this game, I'd say it's probably a stay away if you're going to do, like, if you're looking to pick either the Dolphins or the Rams, because you don't know what you're going to get. And like I said, it's not really handicapping at that point. It's guessing. So you might as well flip a coin, because we don't know what we're going to get from this guy. I'm a Dolphins fan, actually, so I have a lot of opinions on the situation here, but you got to keep the expectations in check. And I don't think it's fair to expect Tua to come out and have an exceptional performance out. He might have a pretty good game. He might have, I think, a pretty good game is if he throws for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick, for example. He's going to make a couple of mistakes, but that's just an assumption. I don't know. Like, we didn't get a preseason to see him go up against a higher caliber defense compared to college. So, yeah, there's a lot of guesswork here, but this game, it looks like a real defensive battle. Miami is coming on strong. They look like a really good defensive team lately. Of course, we saw what the Rams did to the Bears on Monday Night Football. Mind you, the Dolphins offense is much better than the Bears. But, yeah, it's a bit of a stay away in terms of picking a side. If I needed to, I'm a Dolphins fan. So I'd take the Dolphins there, of course.
Start with your heart.
At the plus 3.5. But it's a bit of a bad game situation for the Rams when you consider a couple of things here. First of all, it's on a short week because they played on Monday Night Football. The week before that, they also played a primetime game. Now they're traveling all the way to the East Coast to play in the early time slot. So, I don't know. sometimes you can take that stuff with a grain of salt. That type of stuff can affect different teams in different ways, and maybe that is guesswork there as well, trying to determine if that's going to affect them negatively. But yeah, it's a bit of a tricky game. But if I needed to make a bet for that game, I would go under 46.
Speaking of things that affect different teams different ways, bye weeks. You've been sending out a lot of info on this. I know you've done your research on it.
Sure.
What are some things you're looking at when betting on a team that's coming off their bye week?
Just past performance under that coach, right? Like if you go back and say, the Houston Texans since 2005 after their bye week, that doesn't really matter because it's been a different coach, different quarterback, different defense. So it's all about how the coach prepares the team during the bye week and what type of preparation they're doing from a game planning standpoint. Like one that I looked at last week was that the Raiders, in their 2 seasons under John Gruden coming into this one, they had gotten absolutely obliterated out of their bye week. They were really bad. They got beat by, I think it was 20 points and 14 points, and one of those games were at home. And that was a big reason for me liking the Bucs there last week. Now this week, probably the best game of the week, guys. A lot of people are really interested in this one. Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Out of their bye under John Harbaugh, the Ravens are 10-2 straight up and 9-3 against the spread. And that includes a very impressive 37-20 win over the Patriots last season as a 3-point underdog. So they're really good out of their bye. The Vikings under Mike Zimmer have been pretty bad, 2-4. Against the spread, and they have a really tough matchup in Green Bay, so that's something I consider. But when you're handicapping these games, you just don't look at one thing. Some of these are just trends, right? You always have to have stats to back the trends up, but it is definitely worth considering in terms of game situation.
The other game I wanted to get your take on here before we get to our picks this week, and don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot with picks. We do a little thing with Scott every week where we're tracking how we're betting throughout the year, and he sent me his. But that Chiefs-Jets matchup, when I saw the spread was 19.5, I went, holy shit, that's kind of hilarious because the Jets are terrible. And I also like how your guys' supercomputer is predicting a 41-6 win for the Kansas City Chiefs. When a spread is that large, like there's a part of me, and we talked about this a little on the radio Wednesday, which is why I sound so smart when talking about it, but like KC might take their foot off the gas a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Chiefs brought Chad Henne in last week because they were beating the crap out of the Broncos, and he looked all right. He ran a touchdown in, if I'm not mistaken, and they beat them pretty good. But you look at the history. I think I tweeted this out earlier in the week here. Let's see if I can find it really quick here. I just got my computer here right in front of me. Very exciting for the listeners. Listen to it, guys. Cool.
This podcast never promises to be exciting, so it's on brand.
Nor entertaining.
Nor entertaining. Okay, I like it.
We're under promising and more so under delivering.
I like the honesty. I can't find it here, but I think it was since the late 80s. There's been 12 instances of a team being favored by 20 or more points, and the team being favored by 20 or more points only covered in 3 of those 12 games. So they won every single one of them. There was no major upsets there. But, I think a lot of people were inclined to take the Jets in this spot. I'm not one of them. We've seen the Chiefs obliterate teams all the time. They win by 20 quite often, this version of the team with Patrick Mahomes. And even if they do take their foot off the gas, this Jets team is historically awful. What's to say if the Chiefs pull, some of their key players on defense, that the Jets are still even going to be able to do anything against them? I'm not betting on that one. One spot that I did like in this one is the Chiefs' first half at -11. So you look at the Jets, they have a league worst first half point differential of -11.57. On the road, they've averaged 3.3 first half points. The first half point differential on the road is -16.4. So, I think the Chiefs are going to come out flying. So Chiefs -11 in the first half. That's not a bad bet. I would assume that they'd be up by 13, 14 points at halftime.
Any bets this week you're really liking? Any games that you go, ooh, that one might be where the smart money is?
Yeah, there's one that's talking to me. It's the Titans at 5.5 against Cincinnati in Cincinnati. And sometimes I like to look at teams coming off a loss, right? Because some people undervalue them a little bit, and they almost came back against Pittsburgh there and had a good win. But so this opened at 4. It's up to 5.5, 6 now. I love Tennessee anywhere inside of 7 points. So this is just an absolutely monster edge for the Tennessee offense. A few key stats that I like to look at. So over the last 3 games, the Bengals rank last in opponent points per play, meaning they give up a lot of points and they give them up quickly. In that same span, Titans are first in points per play. So they score a lot of points and they score them quickly. Also, gigantic edge for the Titans on 3rd down and in the red zone. Tennessee defense stinks, but they're getting a little bit better. They're not total trash. I would argue that the Bengals defense is total trash. And Bengals offensive line severely beat up guys. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen questionable. Always look at offensive line injuries. People tend just to pay attention to the skill guys, the guys that are on their fantasy team. But the offensive linemen that you've never heard of, these guys make a big difference. Meanwhile, Cincinnati on their defense, they just traded this Carlos Dunlap guy, one of their better defenders. So you got to wonder, they're probably playing for the future a little bit here, right? I don't think they're inclined to make a push for the playoffs. Not to say they won't be making an effort, but that's just another piece of personnel off their defense going against a top 5 offense in the league. So I think Tennessee can win that one by double digits, by 10 points easy. A bit of a boring game that people won't really have on their radars this week is Chargers-Broncos. Total for that one at 44, and I like the under on this game. So the teams, they're both great in the red zone defensively. 4th and 8th in opponent red zone TD conversion percentage. What this means, we're going to see a lot more field goal attempts opposed to touchdowns. So that makes a big difference, right? Denver offensively in the red zone, 30th overall. And the stats that I like looking at, points per play. It's the team's ability to, first of all, score and how quickly do they do it. Broncos, 30th in points per play. Chargers, nothing to write home about at 22nd. And they're both awful at protecting the quarterback, too. 28th and 23rd at QB pressure percentage allowed, but they're both 8th and 10th at rushing the quarterback. So neither quarterback's going to be very comfortable here. Neither offense is great to begin with. So I like the under 44 over in Denver here on Sunday.
One of my favorite parts of the Guys and Bets show is when you give your teaser bet of the week. You want to let us know what your teaser is this week?
There's a few that I'm eyeing right now. A few spots. Where are we at here with all of my stats here? I love the Packers. I think are a great teaser here at -7. So you're going to get them down to -1. So basically, an outright win is going to take care of business for them, and they're a much better team at home. I don't think that's really much of a surprise. But if you look at some of these stats coming into this game, I'm going to come upon it right now. So the Packers, they lead the league in net yards per play at home, so much better at home. Vikings on the road, 25th in net yards per play. We talked about Mike Zimmer. The Vikings, very bad out of their bye, just 2-4 against the spread. Green Bay is excellent at controlling the clock. They're second in time at possession. Minnesota is 29th. Green Bay, 4th and 3rd down conversion percentage. Minnesota, 28th. So a bunch of big edges there. So I love Green Bay on a teaser. And the other one that I would probably look at, Tennessee's not a bad pairing with that, but I'm going to see what the numbers are at tomorrow, but probably Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I totally agree with them being a 3.5-point underdog in Baltimore. The game situation favors Baltimore. Like I said, off the bye, if they have any injuries, they're probably healed up by now, any serious ones. Whereas if you look at a lot of the stats, a lot of them favor the Steelers, and this Baltimore Ravens offense isn't as good as they were last season. I think Lamar Jackson is going to have a hard time throwing the ball, and he doesn't have the receivers that Ben Roethlisberger does. So if you get the Steelers all the way up to +9.5 on a teaser, I do think that is a fantastic spot as well. So somewhere within those 3 teams, the Packers, Titans, and Steelers, I don't think you can go wrong on a 6-point teaser.
For people who are listening to this and saying, this Osborne guy, he's pretty smart. Guys and Bets. It's on YouTube every day, right? Monday to Friday. What time? How can people watch it?
No, the only thing left right now is football, right?
yeah.
So we do a Thursday show, and that's, heavy focus on the Thursday nighter with picks and props. And usually we'll look ahead to the weekend then with some college football stuff, some UFC stuff, sometimes some golf. And then every Friday, that's the big Football Friday show where we're covering, all the best bets for NFL Sunday, some more college football mixed in as well. So, yeah, Guys and Bets, OddsShark YouTube channel, 12 Eastern, 9 in the West, Thursdays and Fridays.
Perfect. Joe, appreciate your time today, man.
Awesome, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Good luck with all your bets, and good luck to all the listeners as well.
Oh,
Perfect. There we go. That's Joe Osborne from OddsShark.com. Your spot for sports betting information. Become smarter. OddsShark.com. Lovely sponsor of the pod. That guy, man, he's got numbers coming out the wazoo.
I was intimidated. I'm like,
I couldn't. I was
bet
having a hard
everything he says.
I was having a hard time following it, to be honest. I was just like, man, this guy he's diving in deep here.
Yeah.
He's a supercomputer.
He
is in the weeds.
All right. Let's get to our picks of the week. I got Scott Hastings here. I'll read his off before I get to ours.
I want to announce
Okay.
that I have a strategy for this week.
Ooh.
So I will go last.
Okay.
Okay.
Scott's 3 bets this week. He's got Tampa Bay minus 10.5, taking Brady and the Bucks to handle the New York Giants rather easily. He's got LA Denver over 44. So he is going opposite of what our friend Joe Osborne said, which is interesting as well. So he's got that one over 44. And he also has Sunday. He's got Falcons plus 2.5 tonight on the Thursday nighter. So those are Scott Hastings' 3 picks for us. Chalmers came in. He said he's taking Seahawks minus 3.5. And Bagmilk, you want to go next? You got a pick?
Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm very, very happy with my pick now because I was originally going to take Seattle. Chalmers jumped in first, so I'm respecting the shotgun approach. So I'm going with Tampa as well. So to have Scott Hastings say that was also his pick makes me feel pretty good about it because I wasn't feeling so great about it until just like a moment ago.
I am going to, it's not tailing Joe, but he said he didn't mind this bet. I know I'm going to be throwing the Packers in a ton of my teaser parlays this weekend, but I like this bet for them. They're 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games as home favorites, while Minnesota, they're 3-12 straight up in their last 15 games as an underdog. This is a game that I think the Packers win, and they win rather easily. Packers minus 7 is my lock of the week. Jay, you did it? What do you think?
Not with the hard pick.
I had a system, and I don't know if I have a system anymore. Bag Milk, are you? What's your record this year?
I'm 5-2, aren't I?
Yeah. So my strategy was to fade Bag Milk. That was my strategy going to this because I'm like, fuck that guy. The math has got to balance itself out and work against him. But I don't know if I could take the Giants against Tampa.
See, and I thought for sure because my pick number, my other one, because I was kind of figuring you would go Browns over Vegas. So I was also
I'm not touching that game. I'm scared of that game. I was
also eyeballing that one.
I've taken the approach this year of we're in this together, and I'm always rooting for you guys to hit your bets. Like we're 14-14 on the year. I want to see us end the year like 5-6 games over 500.
I like the idea of, betting against each other.
Okay.
I find that to be fun also.
All right.
I think so too, but I would have been more comfortable taking San Fran over Seattle than the Giants plus 12.5. Like they don't have, I know they don't have Saquon Barkley because he was my guy. I don't have him anymore on my fantasy roster. Oh man.
Well, and it's like, so the way I looked at this, and I'm actually going to write this down to ask Scott next week, is I look a lot at points for, points against, because again, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And for me, New York they don't produce very much, and they allow a lot more. Their differential's minus 52, so that's where I settled on Tampa.
And Brady's humming now after last. Like he is humming, so I am not touching that.
Talking about teaser bets with Joe, if you tease Tampa Bay down to 6.5 and tease the Packers down to -1, I can't see a way that loses.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with, like, obviously, like, see, I always wanted to take the Brownies, you know that. But Vegas beat Kansas City. Like, they've got it in them. Like, that's pretty lethal.
Or did KC kind of take their foot off the gas, lose like Tyler said?
But KC wanted to win that game, though. They didn't, like Vegas straight up beat them.
The decision is yours. We are waiting for the.
I know. Well, you threw me off. You threw me off. I kind of like the idea of taking Miami, but I'm just too scary. So I'm going to go with Buffalo. Has been so shitty the last couple of weeks. I think they're going to figure it out. So I'll take them -4.
Buffalo -4. Jay's pick is in. So we got Chalmers at Seahawks -3. I'm on Packers -7. Jay's on Buffalo -4. Bag Milk, T-Bay -12.5. Scott's got Tampa on the spread. LA, Denver over 44. And the Falcons tonight, Thursday nighter, he's got them plus the points against the Carolina Panthers. All right, that's our OddsShark segment. Big shout out to Joe Osborne for joining us. Entertaining dude. Always like catching up with Joe. That's going to do it for another episode of the Real Life Podcast. Brought to you by not just our friends at Oodle Noodle, which remember, 10% of all in-store proceeds go towards a local charity. Oodle Noodle, mwah, we love you very much. And our friends at Twig and Berries, use the promo code NATION15 for 15% off your order, whether it's for yourself or for a man in your life. Save 15%. Get your Christmas shopping done, early and a little bit more cost effectively. All right, episode 226 of the Real Life Podcast is over.
Great job on making it through the entire hour of the Real Life Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast from.